Welcome back to Carneades.org. Today we're going to be continuing with our series, Do Politicians Practice What They Preach? In this video we're going to be looking at the question, are liberals really liberal? So this series is brought to you by our new book, Are All Lives Equal? Why Cost-Benefit Analysis Values Rich Lives More and How Philosophy Can Fix It. Stick around at the end to learn more. Now, in the last video, we looked at what liberalism is. In this video, we're going to look at whether self-described liberal politicians in America endorse policies that are explicitly liberal. We'll avoid the parts of liberalism that are up for debate, particularly along economic lines, and focus on the components that everyone agrees are part of philosophical liberalism. Now, if you haven't watched that previous video for the components of liberalism, you can check that out now. There are many liberal policies that self-described liberals generally support. Many liberals support the right to equal treatment of people regardless of demographic characteristics in the workplace and before the law. In the past, this has meant opposing slavery, supporting the right of women to vote, opposing unequal treatment based on race, supporting rights for people with disabilities, etc. These are all liberal positions, and most, if not all, liberals today support them. Gay rights and trans rights are the modern version of many of these fights, and in these areas most self-described liberals are quite supportive and often describe these fights in explicitly liberal terms, about having the freedom to marry who you wish or the freedom to do what you wish with your body. However, there has been a growing movement of the so-called illiberal left that promotes policies that are in opposition with ideological liberalism, but still call themselves liberals. A central component of this is quote-unquote PC culture, or political correctness, which opposes free speech, a central component of liberalism. However, rarely are such viewpoints actually enacted into law, so it's not really lawmakers, but social media CEOs who claim liberalism but enforce censorship on their platforms. Check out our video on free speech versus political correctness for more. However, there are many illiberal policies supported by supposedly liberal lawmakers. A central tenet of liberalism is equality, that people should be treated equally regardless of their demographic background. However, the illiberal left often proposes policies focused on equity instead of equality, arguing that people from historically oppressed groups should be given additional advantages in accessing services that they have been historically excluded from. This takes the form of policies like affirmative action, or explicitly stating that someone from a particular historically disadvantaged group must be hired or selected for a political position. That's not to say that these views are bad or wrong, simply to say that they're out of line and explicitly opposed to liberalism. These policies are illiberal both because they treat people unequally, but also because they take racial or ethnic groups as a whole to be the subject of moral harm instead of particular individuals. When it comes to foreign policy, there are a range of illiberal positions that self-proclaimed liberals support, but most notably when it comes to the support for communitarian nationalist governments that oppose equal rights for all. A particularly egregious example is the U.S. support for Israel, a country founded to explicitly be an ethno-nationalist state. Any country that privileges a particular ethnic group or religion over another is inherently illiberal. Once again, not to say that it's immoral, but against the ideals of liberalism around having pluralist societies, not communitarian societies. Furthermore, there are many liberals that explicitly evoke religion in their lawmaking and campaigning. While they do it less than conservatives, there are many people who call themselves liberal that claim to gain insight or justification for their policies not through universal reason, but through their particular scripture or religious beliefs. This viewpoint is decidedly illiberal, as it privileges one religious viewpoint over others. There are a range of questions around freedom that are somewhat murky, where it's unclear where one person's freedom stops and another's begins. Abortion, if you think a fetus is not a person, then it cannot have freedom to protect, but if you think it is a person, then the government does have a right to step in to protect that person from a liberal sense. Vaccines and masks, should we protect the rights of people to choose what goes into their bodies, or the rights of people to not die from sickness when someone sneezes on them? Guns, should we protect an individual's right to own a gun, even if doing so often leads to others losing their right to live? It's hard to call someone illiberal for either stance on these issues, since the status of whose freedom is being protected is in fact in dispute. There are many situations where the ideals of politicians are divorced from their actions. One is with politicians that claim all lives are equal, then endorse economic frameworks that explicitly say that some lives are worth tens or even hundreds of times more. To learn more about this and how philosophy can fix it, check out our new book, Are All Lives Equal? You can also check out the website where we have some blogs explaining some of the ideologies present in the book, and even read the first chapter yourself. So the answer to the question, are all liberals really liberal, is that in some areas, yes, and in other areas, no. This is all the more reason for you to research the actual positions of who you vote for. Just because someone calls themselves a liberal doesn't mean they support all aspects of liberalism. What do you think? Are there other examples you can think of where so-called liberal politicians actually take positions that are opposed to the fundamental tenets of liberalism? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. If you like this video and you want to see more, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Watch this video and more here at Carneades.org, and stay skeptical, everybody.